She threw our parents out like they were trash. No warning. No goodbye. Just 2 trash bags and a silent Uber. Her husband stood beside her with his arms crossed, eyes cold, and muttered, "They're old and useless anyway." My heart didn't break. Shattered. My name is Emily. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been treated like a stranger in your own family? Because that's what my sister Heather made me feel that day. The worst part. She didn't even flinch. Just smirked when I asked why. They disturb our privacy, she said, like she was talking about noisy neighbors. Our parents had given her everything. They helped raise her daughter. Paid half her mortgage last year when her husband lost his job. Drove hours to babysit when she needed space. And this is how she thanked them? I looked at my mom standing in the driveway with her cardigan slipping off one shoulder, shaking as she tried to hold her tears back. My dad stood quietly beside her, gripping his cane with trembling fingers. They didn't even argue. Didn't ask why. They just nodded, got in the car, and left. I remember the sound of the door closing behind them. Final. Pulled. Like a chapter ripped out of a book and burned. Heather turned to me all smug. They can live with you now, right? I mean, you're single and all. I didn't answer. I just nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I knew something she didn't. He thought I was soft. She thought I was still the little sister who looked up to her, who envied her big house, her lawyer husband, her perfect suburban life. But I've changed. And she was about to find out just how much. You say, when you try to throw away the people who built your world, don't be surprised when someone burns yours down. I took our parents in that same night. They didn't want to come. My dad kept mumbling, "We'll find a motel. Don't worry." My mom just kept folding and unfolding the same scarf in her lap, as if that would bring her dignity back. But I made them come home with me. I cooked them dinner. Real food. None of that frozen garbage Heather always reheated when she remembered they existed. My mom tried to apologize for the inconvenience. Almost lost it. Inconvenience, I said, slamming the spatula on the counter. You wiped her daughter's nose for 5 years while she partied in Cancun. You covered their bills. And she kicked you out like you were guests overstaying your welcome. They stayed quiet. But I saw it behind my mom's tired eyes and my father's silence, shame. As if they had done something wrong. I tucked it deep in my chest where the fire was growing. And that night, as they slept in my guest room, I opened my laptop and pulled up some folders Heather forgot I had access to. See, I'm not just Emily the single one. I'm Emily Monroe. CPA. Financial strategist. Partner at a private equity firm. And 3 years ago, Heather begged me to help her manage their accounts while her husband was out of work. I handled all their paperwork. Tax filings, business paperwork, the quiet loan their restaurant took, and the cash injections my firm gave to keep them afloat. In short, I had the keys to their kingdom. He thought I'd forgotten. That I wasn't paying attention. But while she was busy playing house, I was the one making sure it didn't collapse. No. Now I was going to unmake it. Not out of spite. Out of justice. Because you don't get to weaponize comfort and call it privacy. You don't get to discard the people who raised you like old receipts. Not without consequences. And in the morning when Heather opened her mailbox, the first one hit. A notice of audit. Signed by me. Heather called me at 6:47 a.m. Emily, what the hell is this? Her voice was shrill, already cracking. Why am I getting a notice from your firm? Are you auditing me? I sipped my coffee slowly. Good morning to you too, Heather. Don't play dumb, she hissed. You don't get to touch our finances. That was temporary. Actually, I said, pulling up the signed agreement she'd emailed me in desperation 3 years ago. I have power of attorney over your business account. Remember? You begged me to handle the books until Todd got back on his feet. Silence. Then a faint, terrified whisper. You wouldn't. I could hear Todd in the background asking what was wrong. Oh, I already did, I said calmly. And you should be grateful. This is the gentle version. She hung up. I expected a counterstrike. Heather always fought dirty. But what she didn't realize is, this time I wasn't playing defense. That afternoon I visited the restaurant they'd nearly run into the ground. It looked impressive on paper. Todd's table had good reviews, sleek branding, even a wine wall. But I knew the truth behind the candles and tablecloths. Unreported income. Under the table wages. Fudged invoices. A PPP loan spent on vacations and home renovations. She thought I didn't notice the sudden pool installation last July? I smiled at the hostess. Can you let the manager know Emily Monroe is here? Minutes later, Todd emerged, sweat beading at his temples. Hey, he forced a grin. You didn't call first. No need, I replied, walking past him into the office. Just here to confirm a few documents before the review. You can't just barge in. Oh, I can. And I did. I pulled out my file. 3 flagged expense reports. 2 duplicate vendor payments. And 1 transaction labeled consulting, paid directly to his cousin's landscaping company. I looked him in the eye. I give you 48 hours to come clean on everything. Or the IRS won't just be calling. They'll be visiting. His face drained. You'd ruin your own sister's life for what? Payback? No, I said, my voice like ice. For my parents. The people you discarded so you could play king and queen in a castle they helped build. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Because for the first time, he realized I wasn't bluffing. I was pulling the entire house of cards. By day 2, Heather was unraveling. She showed up at my office without an appointment, stormed past my assistant and slammed her palm on my desk like I owed her something. You're destroying everything, she snapped, mascara streaked down one cheek. Do you even care what this is doing to us? I leaned back, calm. Colder than marble. You mean like how you cared when you tossed mom and dad out like a pair of shoes too old to wear? She flinched. You know that's not what I meant. Really? I said, standing. Because I watched our mother cry into a dish towel so she wouldn't wake you up. And I watched Dad try to hide his limp so Todd wouldn't call him pathetic again. I watched everything. I just never said a word. Until now. Heather sat down slowly. Kiki. Small. You're blowing this out of proportion. They're fine. You're taking this personally. I raised an eyebrow. They gave you their last good years. And you called them a burden. You think this is personal? Heather, this is math. And math doesn't lie. I opened the laptop on my desk. Showed her the financial inconsistencies. The unpaid taxes. The fraudulent claims. The signature she forged on the vendor contracts. I'd found everything. Her hands began to tremble. I'll fix it, she whispered. I'll bring them back. I'll apologize. Just stop this. But I wasn't the sister she used to shove aside anymore. I wasn't 16 with braces and a silence problem. I was a woman with power. And she was out of moves. I closed the laptop softly. No, Heather. You don't get to fix it when you broke it with arrogance. You don't get to treat people like tools and expect no bill. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. What do you want from me? I leaned in. I want you to feel what they felt. Just for a moment. I want you to know what it's like to be thrown away. To have someone look at you and decide you're no longer useful. That's what I want. I watched her blink back tears. And for the first time in her life, Heather had nothing to say. I gave them 1 week. 1 week to submit revised financials. 1 week to settle unpaid taxes. 1 week to repay the loan they conveniently forgot came from me. Heather tried to grovel through emails. Todd sent a 2 a.m. voice note, slurring apologies like syrup over a wound. But I didn't budge. You see, when someone shows you what power means to them, when they show you it's about control, cruelty, and not care, you don't give them another match. You hand them the ashes. On the 4th day, I got a call from a longtime vendor of Todd's restaurant. The voice on the other end sounded nervous. Emily? I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but I got an offer from your sister. She said to backdate invoices and she'd compensate me. I closed my eyes. They were trying to cover their tracks. So, even now, I thanked him for the call and hung up. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I just acted. I reported the attempted fraud to the audit team. Officially. And I filed a quiet lien on the restaurant, using my legal authority under our agreement. The one they both signed without reading because I was just the younger sister helping them out. No. I owned 51% of the business. Heather called again. Todd texted. But I didn't answer. I had dinner to cook. For my parents. That night my dad finally asked. What exactly is going on, Em? I turned the stove off and faced him. Remember when Heather said you were a burden? I asked gently. He nodded, eyes shadowed. Well, now she'll understand what a real burden feels like. Not because I hate her. but because I loved you. And I won't let that love be treated like trash again. My mother covered her mouth, tears rolling silently. And in that moment I didn't feel like the younger sister anymore. I felt like the daughter of two people who had weathered life and deserved peace at last. Meanwhile, down at Todd's table, the storm clouds were finally gathering. And not even their sleek PR could stop what was coming. The letter arrived on a Thursday. Stark. Embossed with the state seal. It was a formal notice of investigation, tax fraud, embezzlement, and possible labor violations. It landed on Todd and Heather's doorstep like a grenade disguised as an envelope. They didn't even call me this time. They called my boss. They begged. Claimed there was a misunderstanding. Said I was retaliating out of emotion. My boss called me in. I sat in the leather chair across from him, calm as glass. He leaned forward. Emily, I have to ask. Is this personal? I met his eyes. It's justice. Clean. Documented. Legal. And long overdue. He paused. Then nodded. Good. Then finish what you started. And just like that, the final wall came down. That weekend I walked into Todd's table for the last time. The hostess looked surprised. I think we're closed for a private. Todd appeared. And for once there was no smugness on his face. Only fear. Emily, he said, voice cracking. Please. We're losing everything. Heather stood behind him, makeup smeared, hair undone, the mask fully gone. I walked past them, into the main dining room, where over 30 staff members had gathered. I faced them. My name is Emily Monroe, I said clearly. As of yesterday, I hold controlling interest in this restaurant. If you're here legally, paid properly, and not involved in any fraud, your job is safe. If not, leave now. The room was silent. Then 3 people stood and walked out, Todd's cousin included. The rest stayed. I turned back to my sister and her husband. This isn't revenge, I told them quietly. It's reclamation. You took a gift, our parents' trust, their labor, their love, and turned it into a throne. I just tore it down. Heather's eyes brimmed. Where will we go? I didn't answer. Because I already knew the answer. Not to my house. Not to my parents. Not anywhere love lived. They would have to build from nothing. Just like the people they once discarded. And for the first time, they understood what useless really felt like. A week later, I found Heather sitting on a bench outside the county clerk's office. Alone. Makeup free. Holding a manila folder like it weighed 100 pounds. She didn't notice me at first. When she did, her shoulders stiffened, like shame had finally found her spine. I walked up anyway. She didn't speak. So I did. You filing for bankruptcy? She nodded silent. And Todd? Gone, she whispered. Said he didn't sign up for poverty. I let the silence hang. She looked up at me, raw, puffy eyes, lips trembling. Was I really that awful, Emily? I sat beside her. Do you want the real answer? She nodded again. Yes, I said. Her face crumpled. But she didn't argue. That day, I continued, when you kicked them out, Mom had just come from the doctor. Her arthritis was so bad she couldn't bend her fingers to button her coat. And Dad, he was clutching that photo of us from Christmas in '98. The one where you braided my hair and we all wore reindeer pajamas. Her mouth fell open slightly, memory breaking her in real time. I carried their bags to the car, I said, voice steady. You never even looked out the window. Heather covered her face, but I didn't comfort her. Because that moment wasn't for repair. It was for reckoning. After a long pause, she whispered, I don't know how to fix this. I stood slowly. Start by not trying to. Sit in it. Learn from it. Let the silence teach you. She looked up, tears streaking her cheeks. Do you hate me? I shook my head. No. That would be too easy. And I meant it. Hate is sharp. It burns quick, then fades. But what I carried wasn't hate. It was a cold kind of clarity. The kind you earn when love is shattered and you're left sweeping glass in the quiet. I left her there on that bench. Not because I wanted her to suffer. But because growth never happens under rescue. It blooms only when no one is coming. And Heather had finally been left alone with the truth. A month later, my parents' garden was in full bloom. My father's hands, once rough from decades in construction, were now soft with soil. He'd started a tomato patch and was obsessed with keeping squirrels out, built a tiny netted fortress around each plant. My mother laughed more now, her joints still stiff but her spirit lighter. She wore bright colors again, lemon yellows and sky blues, colors I hadn't seen her touch in years. One morning I brought her tea on the porch. She looked out at the lawn and said, "I keep waiting to feel guilty for being happy." I sat beside her and tucked a blanket around her legs. "Why guilty?" "Because I raised both of you," she said softly. And look what she became. I didn't answer right away. Because what do you say to a mother mourning the ghost of a living daughter? Eventually I said, "You did your best. Heather made her choices. And you're allowed to feel peace, even if it took hell to get here." She nodded, eyes misting. The truth was I didn't check on Heather anymore. Not directly. But I heard things. That she was working part-time at a front desk downtown. That she took the bus now, sometimes in the rain, hair tied back in a messy ponytail. Todd hadn't returned. The restaurant was still open, under my ownership and thriving. We'd renamed it Monroe Kitchen, a nod to the family name, the real family. The staff had new uniforms, better wages, and every Friday a free dinner shift for seniors in the community. People kept asking if I wanted to put out a press release, do interviews, claim the moral victory. But I didn't. Because this wasn't about public justice. It was about quiet repair. Until one afternoon, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Heather. Soaked from rain. No umbrella. No makeup. Her eyes were tired but no longer defiant. She didn't speak right away. Just held out a small, faded envelope. I took it carefully. Inside was a folded piece of paper. And a check. Only $42.18. "It's what I had left this month," she whispered. "For Mom and Dad's groceries. For, I don't know. Whatever. I needed to try." I stared at the check. At the tiny, shaky signature. It was nothing. And somehow, it was everything. "They're in the garden," I said quietly. She hesitated, then nodded and walked past me, slowly, like she wasn't sure if the ground would hold her. From the porch I watched her approach our parents. Mom stood first, unsure. Dad looked like he might cry. Heather dropped to her knees right there in the grass. And I heard it. Not the full words, but the ache in her voice, the tremble, the breathless stammer of someone finally choking on their own pride. My parents embraced her. Not because they'd forgotten what she did. But because healing doesn't ask for perfect. It just asks for honest. I didn't walk out to join them. Not yet. Because forgiveness isn't a performance. It's a process. One that blooms in layers like the roses Mom had planted near the fence. The ones Heather used to stomp past like they didn't exist. No. She was kneeling right beside them. Later that evening my mother found me washing dishes and said, "You don't have to forgive her yet." "I know," I whispered. "She has to earn it." I nodded. And for the first time I felt weightless. Not because the past had disappeared. But because it no longer defined me. The story didn't end with vengeance. It ended with truth. With accountability. With love returning, not loud or grand but patient. And in that softness was the justice I'd always wanted.